Hello, this is Trends, the program that gives the online community a voice. And I am Bunmi Obanawu. And as always, we have Moses Omogena. He's our digital producer. He's always interacting with you. What's trending, Moses?
I like that tag. The program that gives the online community a voice.
You know, I was thinking about what to say to make it different.
It's a good one. It's really what we do. So, what's trending? I'm afraid I'm bringing back what we've been hearing. Hashtag bring back our girls.
But they're not back, so we have to keep talking about it.
Yes, we have to. But there's a new twist, and we do not know, no one knows, the condition of the well-being of these girls. So that's that for that. Now, second is all the way from Sudan, what we discussed a few weeks back, the apostasy issue, hashtag save Miriam. Now, Miriam, has successfully put to bed.
Okay.
She gave birth to a very beautiful baby girl. I saw the pictures, and father holding the baby. Now, to think that she, put to bed within the walls of a prison, that, raises some emotions towards that. But it's where she found herself. Now, she filed for an appeal, and the appeal court has ordered immediate release of her because they said that the court that tried her in the first place is guilty of what they call procedural errors, which, begs the question, if a professional judge, so to speak, is guilty of procedural errors, then in itself, he also should be guilty, should be charged for that because, you sentenced someone, to death. If that had been taken outrightly, if she wasn't pregnant, which somewhat caused a delay, she would have been killed, for no grounds, really, in quote. So, that's been a controversy, on social, local, and international media, basically.
But I guess the good news is she has a beautiful baby. Don't you just love newborn babies?
Yeah,
They're always so cute.
That's very tacky.
Yeah, that's sad.
And of course, don't forget, you can always join the conversation by, following us, on Twitter at TVC Trends. And of course, you can send in your views and your comments on Facebook at facebook.com/TVC Trends, and your pictures and video comments to our email at thetrends@tvcnews.tv.
Certainly.
So, what are we dishing out today, Bunmi?
All over the world, social media have become important tools in mobilizing support for or against a social cause. But the effectiveness of these platforms in influencing social change always attracts endless debates. In the last 5 years, powerful hashtags and comments on both Twitter and Facebook have driven global attention to social and national issues of different African countries, forcing a lot of coverage by mainstream media from across the globe. Powerful hashtags like CD Bouzid, that triggered Tunisia revolution in 2011. We also have the Egyptian revolution with the hashtag Jan25, and hashtag Egypt. We also have the campaign to arrest the Uganda guerrilla, a group leader and head of the Lord's Resistance Army, Joseph Kony, with Make Kony Famous. We also have hashtag Kony2012 and the recent Bring Back Our Girls in Nigeria. Now, all these have attracted millions of support and social media users across the globe. But critics say such a wave of global sentimentality many times oversimplifies simple issues and changes nothing except just raising awareness. Is this enough? Well, today on the program, we look at the concept of hashtag activism. Can we safely say awareness in itself is a form of activism? Find out after this break. We'll be right back.
But I want to turn back to the kidnapping, the terrible kidnapping of these Nigerian schoolgirls in the little bit of time we have left in this segment, because this week Michelle Obama and Malala Yousafzai joined the Bring Back Our Girls movement. More than 2 million people have now tweeted the hashtag. And George, I'm just curious, because I must say I was not that familiar with this phenomenon. It's even got a name, hashtag activism. And I'm curious what you make of it. Do you think that this is significant and helpful and can make progress? Or do you think it's really about helping the people who tweet the hashtag feel better about themselves?
Exactly that. It's an exercise in self-esteem. I do not know how adults stand there facing a camera and say, bring back our girls. Are these barbarians in the wilds of Nigeria supposed to check their Twitter accounts and say, oh, Michelle Obama is very cross with us. We better change our behavior.
It's trending. It's trending on Twitter.
Power is the ability to achieve intended effects, and this is not intended to have any effect on the real world. It's a little bit like environmentalism has become. the incandescent light bulb becomes the enemy. Has no effect whatever on the planet, but it makes people feel good about themselves.
Julie?
I do think that you have to take this for what it is. I don't think anyone is saying that by standing there and taking a picture of yourself holding a sign that you're going to get these girls back. But you have to remember, this is something that had really not been talked about, not even by the Nigerian government itself, before this started to really take hold on social media. Now, what it has done is put more pressure on the Nigerian government to accept some international assistance and to raise questions about, why they hadn't done that previously. So standing there holding a sign does not bring the girls back, but it could ratchet up the pressure that could lead to some more international assistance.
Interesting, right? Moses is still laughing at that.
I mean, I can imagine Shekau looking for his
like,
Twitter
oh my
page.
God, she's really upset.
Yeah, hashtag bring back our girls. It's all about me,
But I find it interesting that every time hashtag activism comes up, people question the motive of the people behind it. And I wonder, is that as important as the good or the desired results that, has been gotten from it? Is the motive as important?
Taking it one by one, what the guy said, he's right to an extent, where he says, things are not just going to happen because you said it. I mean, now, taking the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls as an example again, it got to a point where people were just using that as a way of getting popular, where celebrities would just come and, do this and make a YouTube video. It was all publicity for themselves, not really because they cared about who these girls were. Yes, which, the lady said it.
Julie,
it's more like a resultant effect. It's doing something to create another thing. Of course, if that hashtag was not created, then the pressure
might
wouldn't
not
have
been
been
what
on the
it is
federal
now.
government. Who, before now, that would have just been like another story. Like the 60 boys, that were killed, burnt alive, in their sleep
Okay.
was it Borno or Gombe? Oh, sorry, and the other,
It's Yobe.
Yeah, it's Yobe State, thank you very much. And the other girls that were kidnapped before then, that was just swept under the carpet. So all these hashtags, sort of bring in, the pressure and the awareness to create,
Okay,
effect.
don't worry, it's not just Moses and I. You must have heard Chinedu already. So joining us to discuss today's issue is Chinedu Ekeke. He's a social media entrepreneur. And via Skype, we have Babatunde Rosanwo. He's a social analyst, a social media analyst to be exact. Thank you very much for joining us, Babatunde and Chinedu. So would you want me to call you Chinedu or Nedu? I know your Twitter name is Nedu.
Nedu.
So would that be better for you?
You call me whatever you want to call me.
Okay, I love that then. So we watched that video. What's your take on it?
Sure, my take is, number one is that if you sit behind your computer or your iPad or wherever and you type "bring back our girls," it doesn't bring back those girls. That's number one. But then it creates awareness. And then when other people join you across the world, across the country, wherever they are, everybody joins you, and then you become a larger voice, a stronger voice, and then people will listen. And that was actually what happened. Okay, it was just a hashtag, it was just what someone typed, and then there were tweets, there were retweets, and ultimately it gathered momentum, and then we were all out on the streets asking them to bring back our girls, and it worked. Actually, the girls are not yet back, but then there's much pressure on the Nigerian government to get the girls
talking
back.
about pressure on the Nigerian government, Babatunde, after the hashtag became so popular as it is now, governments from all over the world, started paying attention. What makes the social media so important that it draws the attention of superpowers?
All right. I've tried to catch up with your discussion. I'm a bit lost in between. But if I heard you clearly, you were asking what's so special about social media. I mean, what is that a question?
Yes.
Well, the simple thing is this: social media itself is not the solution to anything. It's just a means to an end. It's just a platform. So everybody is free to use it, whether you're into business, you're into activism, you're into governance, you're into broadcasting. The most important thing is what you want to achieve with the tool. It's just a tool. So let us, I heard the KK saying, let us not attribute too much to social media, but let us attribute much to those who use it and what they intend to get out of it. So that's more important.
Well, talking about that, it also draws my attention to the video that the people and what they intend to get out of it. Now, if their intentions are not pure, wouldn't that also affect the campaign in itself?
Of course, I do think...
Because the first guy wasn't very comfortable, with the Bring Back Our Girls and saying how he was making a mockery of
I actually do think the credibility of the person campaigning matters a lot. Okay, credibility. Sorry to say this, but I do think the credibility of the face of Bring Back Our Girls in Nigeria, the person that people are associated with it, her credibility, she's quite formidable, she's quite credible, and so it lends credence to this demand to bring back our girls. You could tell that even when some people were saying, okay, this person has political motives behind her, what she's doing, there were so many people who didn't believe that was the truth. Mm-hmm. So I think the credibility of the people who are actually driving these causes matters so much. Okay. Yeah.
But credibility or not, haven't they been very effective in fighting social causes?
Of course they have. They have. They've been very effective. But again, when someone that you suspect is not, or someone that you know is not actually credible wants to drive a social cause, you could see that the following is actually not as much as you would get when someone that you know is very credible is driving a social cause. So I think credibility of the individuals behind these hashtags are actually important, or is important.
Okay, interesting. Moses, you want to jump in?
Yeah, let me direct this question to Rosanwo. Social media activism or hashtag activism, what exactly does that mean to you?
Well, again, I still try to be very careful in just giving definitions. Definitions could put this ideas in the box, which I'm not a professional at doing. But it's very simple. You feel so genuine about something, you go online, you talk about it. If you gain traction and people listen to you, fine. If you can connect with people, good. I think we should try not to forget that even before now, for you to have a protest when there was no social media, you still needed to go around and talk to people. In my days of Aluta, you still had to go to the hostel, send your soldiers around, talk to the students in their rooms, in their classrooms before you go to the larger congress. Say, okay, fellow students will protest. You still need to convince people. So that's the same thing with social media. There's still need for you to convince people to follow you to do. The people on social media are not momus. So the only difference is this. You have this instant feedback.
Okay.
You get my point. You get this instant feedback and you have the larger reach.
Okay, so two important points there. Instant feedback
and awareness.
Yeah, and a wider reach.
Oh,
but
right.
also critics say that, this hashtag activism is lazy and very hypocritical. They even say that many support the cause to do so. They just do this because it makes them feel
easy.
good.
Yeah, it's a feel-good syndrome, and it's really easy to do. But when it's really time, for you to take your action from online to offline on land, there is a drop in that activism, so to speak. How would you?
Only effective online, but when it's offline, the interest has waned. Does this make sense to you? Okay,
you wouldn't expect everybody who tweets "Bring Back Our Girls" to come out for protest. Okay, there are so many reasons why everybody will not come out. Some would go for their work, others would go for their businesses, others may not just be interested. And this happens everywhere in the world. Everybody will not be interested in protests.
That summarizes everybody.
Sorry. No. What I'm saying is everybody will not be interested in protests. Some people will be. Okay? So, but the most important thing is that awareness was created with a hashtag or through hashtags. And then this now drove people offline to actually say, okay, let's gather here, let's protest. So for me, I think it could be lazy, But again, it's achieving results. And I think that's what matters most, the result.
Okay, Babatunde, Chinedu here just said it achieves results, and that's the most important thing. But don't you think that if we cannot be sure of how involved the people retweeting, sharing links, liking, doing all of that, how involved they are to the cause in itself, we can't really judge the effectiveness of the activism, if I might say. Don't you think this also affects it?
I think another thing I also want to clear, activism is not always going to be fulfilled by going on the streets all the time. So sometimes your ability to connect and educate people is also a milestone. Just like Edu just said now, if you want to measure it only by people going on offline, you probably not get everybody to go for protest. But something is quite important. For people to put their names and their faces to statements, that's quite important. And as long as you have more citizens who are willing to say their mind, ask the government more questions. I mean, we are moving from point A to B. It may not seem like you would get results that you can measure within 2 minutes or 2 days. But with time, I'm 100% sure that you begin to see citizens connecting and asking more questions. And honestly, let me say this about social media. The kinds of debates that happen on social media, you cannot hold it on TV.
Yeah, I can agree. Well, you cannot hold it in the same extent as which you have it on social media, right?
Yeah, people are there to express themselves, to get feedback from citizens. Unlike now, if we say some things on TVC, NBC is going to write a letter to you within 2 minutes and ask you why do you have Nedu on your TV station.
And that reminds me, did you inform them I was coming here?
I'm sure we did. We always try to be on the safe side.
This is legal business, bro.
Okay, so I get your point, and certainly. But I think you sound like you know each other. He's calling you Nedu, even though I introduced you as Chinedu.
Of course, we do know ourselves.
So it's a very small social media world out there.
Oh, like a global village. Very small. Yeah.
Okay, well, can we say that at the long run, Babatunde just pointed something out, that it's not about going on the streets. That's not the only way to, achieve any kind of results you get. So it's not about just going on the streets. People putting their names and faces to statements, it's bold in itself. It's a bold act.
Of course.
So that means social media activism is good enough to drive social change.
Of course. Of course. You could see the video we watched. They were talking about Michelle Obama. Of course, she didn't come to Nigeria. She didn't come to Abuja. She didn't go to Unity Fountain to protest. She just held it. And then it made a statement that the First Lady of the United States is actually asking the government of Nigeria to bring back those girls. Okay, so you could, activism is not just about forcing maybe the government to do something. Activism could also be stopping the government from doing something, okay? Stopping a move. And in that instance, you may not necessarily come out to protest. You could just raise awareness. Okay, let me give you an instance. You heard that the governor of Akwa Ibom State is about to repeal the law that was the pension law that was just passed by the State House of Assembly.
Okay, Akwa Ibom in Nigeria.
Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria. Sorry, I've forgotten. Everybody watches globally. All right, so he's about, I actually read it, where he said, okay, because of the opera, he's going to send another bill to the House, and a part of it is going to be repealed. Nobody came out to protest. It was just the opera. Okay, social media were like, everybody kept talking, and then people wrote articles. I read I've forgotten who wrote that. Was it Rudolph or Sonala on Sarah Reporters, as greedy as Akpabio. Okay, that was a strong one. And then the man said, okay, we are going to.
So that's an example of how social media...
So that's an example of how people did not necessarily come out to protest on the streets, but then result is being
still
achieved.
Happened.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point, we have to take a break now. But when we come back, we'll be looking at some of the more famous hashtags that have been out there. So don't go anywhere.
This is TVC News. I'm Air Haraz.
I am Bukola Samuel.
It's 20 years since the genocide in Rwanda, and tonight here at King's College in London, are a time to remember those who died.
Welcome back. We're still talking about hashtag activism. So let me tell you a little story about this particular hashtag, Yes All Women. And no, not because I'm a woman, but because it's actually trending. So Yes All Women rather came in the wake of the very horrific killing by this young man in California. He claimed that women weren't giving him enough attention, Elliot Rogers, and so he went on this killing spree.
Syndrome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now this hashtag came up and women were talking about different cases, you know, that they've experienced. So it's another way to vent out all these repressed gender inequality issues that they want out there. It's doing a lot of good, yes, but guess what? The woman who started the hashtag has been receiving quite a lot of death threats. Now, you talked about how, you know, someone out there knowing that there's people in this particular space hurling insults at you. So we know that social media can also be used for bad, not just for good, taking this case as an example. So isn't that the danger of social media or hashtag activism? It's been taken over by people who, will I call them merry pranksters? So they just make a mockery out of the campaign in itself.
You know, the possibility of the hero being a victim at the end of the day.
Yeah, but you don't blame the people who created the hashtags.
Certainly not.
You don't blame the people who use the hashtags. You blame the people. It's just like we have a free society and then someone wakes up and then carries his gun and starts killing people. You don't blame us for having a free society. You don't blame us for entrenching our freedom. You blame the people who want to abuse it. And then what do? You look out for them and then sanction them. That's what should be done. The people who are threatening the woman who created the hashtag should be traced, okay? They should be traced and then they should be brought to justice. That's what I think. It's not the fault.
Hashtag
seriously. Sorry? Someone can create that. Someone can choose to create that and say, okay, let's look for the culprits and then bring them to book.
Okay.
So it's not the problem of the hashtag. It's actually the problem of the people who want to abuse freedom, societal freedom.
So understanding that hashtag activism can be overtaken by the force of evil, how can it be controlled? Did you get that, Babatunde?
Okay.
Yeah. Did you get me, Rosanwo?
Yeah. You said how can hashtag.
So how can we control it, you know, to make sure that
you know, people could use it for negative reasons.
Yeah. So how can we make it
remain
positive?
No,
you first and foremost, I'm not for censorship. I'm not for censorship. Honest, please don't ask for those kind of things.
Yes.
There's a way every medium regulates itself. Just like they do say, if somebody sends a death threat to someone on the social media, the person should be tracked down and the police should take care of the investigation. But I think we are being sometimes outside of the Yes All Women, which I don't agree to death threats. I think I've seen Nigerians being unnecessarily petty about certain things on social media and saying this, just the angle of you want it controlled or not. If you criticize Mr. President, for example, people will ask you whether you are not from Nigeria or so. But go to the newspaper bus stop or wherever, and find out what people say every morning when they read the newspapers. Enter the bus. People vent their anger. So sometimes it's not new when you see people coming on social media to vent their anger. It's the normal lifestyle, day-to-day things people are bottled in as a result of bad governance, and they've had no medium to express themselves, and they are expressing themselves. But when it comes to bullying, death threats, and so, I think that should then be, you know, taken up with the police. Okay. I don't subscribe to death threats on social media. It's quite wrong. The same thing, you should not do it in real life.
Okay.
Okay, you know, just before we take in one more question, I have to read a couple of tweets. And this one comes from Penny Crook. And Penny says, hashtag social media activism influence public policy, question mark. And Mohammed Mandi says, social media activism beyond tweets and likes, but does it bring real change? Okay, and Nizrin says, they're not capable of real change. No hierarchy, no strategic direction, hashtag social media activism. Now, let me ask you this, Chinedu. In 5-10 years from now, how would you rate hashtag activism in Africa?
In 5 years' time, it would have grown, it would have had direction, it would have
structure.
Had, it would have had structure, it would have had hierarchy. so you have to understand that this thing is new, okay, and then it's a bit spontaneous, okay. So what would happen is that as we grow, there will be structure. People will structure it, and then people would, within itself, it will evolve and then grow to start solving those problems they think it's not solving at the moment. But for me, at the moment, I think it's done enough. It's done well so far.
Okay, so to evolve into something better.
Yeah, on its own, it will evolve into something better.
All right.
Rosamond, what do you think? What do you think? What is the future of hashtag activism in Africa?
Honestly, I don't know.
Really?
Very honest
7
answer.
years ago, I could not predict there was going to be Twitter and hashtag. So in another 7 years, I don't know what would happen.
But taking into cognizance the spirit of things, the way the little progress is being made here and there, I'm sure there should be some future prospects for Africa. Don't you think?
Oh, okay. I think we have lost Rosamond, but this
Just
has
had to
certainly
go in
been
time.
yes, this has certainly been a very interesting conversation. And remember that the discussion might end here now, but it has not ended because we continue online. We can't take any more.
Hashtag.
Thank you very hashtag. Let's go now.
Hashtag TVC Trends continue.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Nedu, for being a part of the program. And
My pleasure.
also Rosamond, even though he isn't here anymore, sadly. Remember, join us on Twitter at TVC Trends, Facebook, facebook.com/TVC Trends. We always want to hear from you. Goodbye.